Tempered optimism as Hong Kong records no COVID-19 infections for the first time in 11 days. Welfare Chief digs in his heels as he rejects calls for an unemployment subsidy scheme. And virus resurgence reveals the fragility of European countries that thought the worst was over.
Hello and thanks for joining us here on TVB News. Hong Kong reported no local COVID-19 infections today, the first time in 11 days. That's raising hopes of a further relaxation of social distancing measures.
But a desperate tourism sector wants authorities to ease the public gathering ban, claiming the survival of the industry is at stake. Haley Zhou reports.
Hong Kong reported no locally acquired COVID-19 case today, the first time in 11 days, and only one imported case. The person is a member of a cargo plane crew that arrived on Thursday from Bahrain. The 48-year-old tested positive at the airport but started showing symptoms from Monday. 2 people who were on the same plane have been put under quarantine. Despite signs the epidemic is coming under control, an infectious disease expert says it's still too early to relax social distancing measures.
We have to be very cautious in the subsequent 1 to 2 weeks' time, because we need to closely monitor whether there's still some local cases. If not, then I will consider the third wave of our community outbreak comes to an end.
That couldn't come soon enough for Hong Kong's tourism industry. It's desperate to get back to business. In particular, industry wants to see restrictions on public gatherings relaxed so tour buses can accommodate more than 4 people. The president of the Hong Kong Travel Agent Owners Association says they need at least 20 people per bus to see a profit.
Comparing our people to take up the public bus, so many people stand up with the mask, standing up face to face, still okay. Why not allow? Well, cannot allow, and that will not be so risky.
Ip says he's received a positive response from government officials on this. But health experts like Zhang says authorities must wait until silent transmission chains in the community completely disappear.
I do think that the public gathering ban can have some room for further relaxations. If we do have 0 local cases in the coming 1 to 2 weeks' time. So I think this is something that we can consider.
Haley Zhou, TVB News.
Mobile COVID-19 testing labs at Sun Yat-sen Memorial Park Sports Center have been dismantled.
The temporary structures won't be needed anytime soon, but as Dong Yao-ne explains, they could be used again in the future.
The air-inflated labs had processed more than 1.7 million samples for Hong Kong's mass COVID-19 testing program. Today, they were dismantled as the city's 3rd wave of infections eases. Sunrise Diagnostic Center, the mainland Hong Kong joint venture in charge of the scheme's laboratory screening, says the 16 dismantled labs will be stored in their warehouse. But they will be deployed again in the event of another virus resurgence.
50日內，即係8月6號。
Anthony Wu, chairman of the Sunrise Diagnostic Center, said the labs were a key part of a historic mission during the 50 days they were in use. He says they could be up and running again within a week if the city sees a 4th wave of epidemic or other mass testing needs. Wu says all testing facilities will be removed from the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Park Sports Center today. The center will also complete disinfections today, but it's up to the LCSD to decide when to reopen it. As for operation costs, the final bill is still being tallied and will be sent to the central government. The city is speeding its launch of the cross-border health code system and travel bubbles with foreign regions, both of which require citywide mass testing capability. Currently, air passengers arriving in Hong Kong must wait hours or even days for their COVID-19 testing results. The Sunrise Diagnostic Center, which is also handling part of the city's COVID testing for high-risk groups, says it can now process 90,000 specimens a day.
各方面能夠幫到香港係去
If necessary, Wu says they can boost testing capacity for faster test results when more travel is allowed. But he says there is still a possibility of seeking mainland's help again if there is a lack of manpower. Dong Yaonie, TVB News.
Secretary for Labour and Welfare Law Chi Kwong again rejected calls to set up an unemployment subsidy scheme. Speaking on a radio program, Law noted the 2 rounds of employment subsidy scheme secured the jobs of nearly 800,000 people. The government has no plans to roll out a 3rd installment of the plan. Law is facing criticism because of that decision, but said it's impossible to set up a dedicated fund that supports the unemployed. He explained Hong Kong lacks a social insurance system, which also records employees' tax returns. The Labour chief stressed it would be difficult to create such a system from scratch, particularly when it's unclear when the city will return to normal levels of employment.
Beijing's municipal legislature has passed a bill that would allow medical workers to report public health emergencies directly to the department or the government.
The move comes months after a doctor died after attempting to alert authorities about the danger of the coronavirus.
Li Wenliang was an ophthalmologist at the Wuhan Central Hospital. Last December, he was among the first group of doctors in the epicenter of the coronavirus to share posts on social media warning of the spread of a SARS-like virus. A month later, national police accused him of spreading rumors and issued disciplinary letters to him. Li died of the virus the next month. He was awarded a medal posthumously for his efforts to fighting against the virus on the front lines. But the incident sparked controversy on the mainland over how to protect such whistleblowers. Yesterday, Beijing's Municipal People's Congress Standing Committee passed an ordinance stating all units and individuals have the right to raise concerns over potential problems related to public health emergencies. Those reports can also be made directly to the government or relevant departments rather than individual team leaders. If medical staff happen to learn of possible public health hazards, they can also do the same. Under the new rule, municipal governments are required to ensure the channel of communication runs smoothly. They must also establish an investigation procedure to protect the personal safety and the message filed by the individual. If the complaint or report is verified, that person should also be rewarded. As for false alarms or reports that are unintentional and not malicious, no follow-up action will be taken. Shenzhen Municipal People's Congress Standing Committee passed a similar motion last month, which goes into effect next month. Authorities there say every Shenzhen resident has the right to be a whistleblower.
A 23-year-old PolyU student arrested on suspected illegal weapons possession has been denied bail. He appeared at a Tuen Mun court to face charges of possessing firearms without a license and importing strategic commodities without permission. He was arrested along with his mother Thursday after police raided their home in Fanling, where officers found guns, knives, and a telescopic baton. The mother has not been prosecuted, but police are looking into whether the pair breached the national security law. The case resumes November 20th.
A University of Hong Kong legal scholar says intensifying Sino-US tensions may lead to stricter enforcement of the national security laws in the SAR. During an online seminar, Albert Chan said that's because the legislation is Beijing's defense against foreign threats. Another law professor said the security law would greatly chip away at the power of the judiciary.
The national security law can be interpreted as a move on the part of China to defend its national security against threats to China's national security posed by the U.S. and other so-called foreign forces. The future enforcement of the national security law may also depend on the future relationship between the U.S. and China. I think that is, in fact, a very worrying development.
Probably most detrimental is the impact on the judicial power, because the national security law provides that the court will not be able to interpret the provisions of the national security law. So it's very likely that the court's authority will be greatly affected.
Investigators are digging into another telephone scam in Hong Kong. This time, $7 million has gone missing. Police say a 27-year-old man was contacted by people who claimed the victim was under investigation in a money laundering case. The callers claimed to be mainland law enforcement officers. They asked for the man's address, identity number, and online bank account information. Deposits were then transferred to another account. In an unusual move, police say the scammers were then forced a woman to present a fake arrest warrant to the victim. Police have been unable to recover some of the cash. No arrests have been made.
Overseas now, European leaders are slamming what they call a collective failure to contain COVID-19. The comments at Friday's virtual UN General Assembly come as countries throughout the continent begin to reimpose lockdown restrictions.
Meanwhile, the number of new coronavirus cases in the Asia-Pacific region appears to be trending lower. Daniel Rao has more.
Friday's virtual UN General Assembly came amid a global resurgence of the coronavirus. The spike in COVID cases has been particularly rapid in Europe. Lockdown measures are being reintroduced throughout the continent. EU Council President Charles Michel said the virus's spread revealed the fragility of countries that thought they were strong. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez added, "The crisis made us realize we are part of one single world." Italy's Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte was optimistic the international community will be able to make a comeback from the damage done by the pandemic. Meanwhile, Greek leader Kyriakos Mitsotakis called for the WHO's funding to be increased. Outside of Europe, renewed efforts to control the spread of COVID in the Asia-Pacific region could be beginning to pay off. India reported more than 85,000 new coronavirus cases today, meaning infections slowed down this month. Average daily cases in India have fallen by around 7,000 in the past week, after hitting a record high of almost 98,000 about a week ago. South Korea reported 61 new coronavirus cases. The first time in 4 days its daily increase came below 100. Authorities warned next week's annual Chuseok Harvest Festival could lead to another surge of infections. In Australia, the COVID hotspot state of Victoria reported just one more coronavirus death Saturday, with Melbourne's new case average continuing to drop. The city's month-long lockdown restrictions will be eased Monday. The global confirmed coronavirus death toll is now approaching 1 million. Experts, however, claim the real tally could be much higher. Daniel Rao, TVB News.
Still ahead on the program, rage continues to Royal Louisville as protesters pressure authorities to reveal more in the death of a black woman. Trump promises to nominate new justice soon as America says goodbye to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And Beatles bluffs try to get their hands on some Fab Four stuff.
Welcome back to TVB News. Another night of protests in Kentucky over a grand jury decision not to charge any of the police officers involved in the death of Breonna Taylor.
A state lawmaker spent the night in jail after she was arrested for taking part in the protests, and Taylor's family is calling for all evidence of the grand jury proceedings to be made public. Leslie Tang has more.
Protests rage for a third straight night in Louisville, with demonstrators calling for justice for Breonna Taylor. The latest wave of demonstrations was triggered after a grand jury decided not to charge any police officers in connection with her death.
It was a kick in the gut, and it was a lot. And I cried up until I went to sleep last night. I cried when I woke up this morning.
Taylor, a medical technician and aspiring nurse, was shot to death in a drug raid gone wrong when plainclothes white officers burst into her apartment and opened fire. Police claim it was self-defense as her boyfriend fired at them, thinking they were intruders. Taylor's family is calling on Kentucky's Attorney General to make all body camera footage, police files, and the transcripts of the grand jury proceedings public.
If you did everything that you could do on Breonna's behalf, You shouldn't have any problem whatsoever, Daniel Cameron, to releasing the transcript so that we can see you fought for all of Kentucky's citizens, especially including Tamika Palmer's daughter, Breonna Taylor. Release the transcript. Release the transcript. Release the transcript.
A Kentucky state lawmaker was arrested during the protests, charged with rioting and unlawful assembly. She was kept in jail overnight.
We were traumatized. We were shocked. It was unbelievable. And right now, I'm very disgusted and angry that LMPD would levy these false charges against me and my child and other folks that we were out with.
Protesters vow to continue taking to the streets until someone is charged with Taylor's killing. Leslie Tang, TVB News.
U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to announce Judge Amy Coney Barrett as his Supreme Court pick as he aims to put a historic conservative stamp on the court just weeks before the presidential election.
5 o'clock tomorrow at the White House, we're going to be naming the nominee who hopefully will be on that court for 50 years, 50. 50 years. Be on there for 50 years. The only thing I can tell you for sure is it will be a woman. Is that okay?
Trump is wasting little time in trying to replace the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is lying in state at the U.S. Capitol after losing her fight against pancreatic cancer last week. She's the first woman to ever receive the honor. Ginsburg was a liberal icon, while Barrett, an outspoken conservative. Barrett's appointment would shift the balance of the court to be dominated by conservatives.
At least 22 people were killed in a military plane crash in Ukraine's Kharkiv region. Ukrainian officials say the plane was carrying 27 air cadets from Kharkiv Air Force University during a training flight. 2 seriously injured passengers are in hospital. A search operation has been launched to locate 3 other missing individuals. There has been no suggestion the incident is linked to the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said today the cause of the accident would be investigated promptly and impartially. He also declared Saturday a day of mourning ahead of a visit to the crash site. Lebanon's Prime Minister-designate has resigned amid a political impasse over government formation. Mustafa Adib had been on the job only a month. The announcement deals a blow to French President Emmanuel Macron's efforts to break a dangerous stalemate in the crisis-hit country. The French leader has been pressing Lebanese politicians to form a cabinet made up of independent specialists that can work on enacting urgent reforms. Lebanon is reeling from a devastating economic and financial crisis worsened by the August 4th explosion at Beirut port.
Crews are preparing to remove the remaining decomposing carcasses of dozens of pilot whales from the waters of Tasmania State in Australia. Some 470 whales were discovered beached on the shore and sandbars in Australia's worst mass stranding. Authorities rescued 108 whales. Crews are now turning to the task of disposing 350 carcasses at sea, which will take a number of days. Pilot whales are known for stranding in mass groups. The reason for the recent mass stranding will probably remain a mystery, but scientists say the social nature of the species may have played a part in the incident. Auction house Sotheby's is set to hold an online auction of Beatles memorabilia marking the 50th anniversary of the band's breakup. Among the items up for grabs are a pair of John Lennon's iconic glasses and school detention sheet, as well as a signed copy of the band's first single, Love Me Do. Some items are expected to fetch more than $50,000 US.
It's extraordinary how much love and attention that people still bring to the Beatles. There's no sign of any slackening of interest. I think there is something about the optimism and the beauty of the music that just sings to us today. And I think perhaps especially at this moment, looking back to the 60s, it just seems like such a glorious time. And they were having a ball, and it shows through.
And finally tonight, moon watchers have an excellent chance to get to know Earth's closest neighbor a little better over the next couple of days. This weekend will be the best time to view the lunar landscape because the moon will be half illuminated in its first quarter phase. Viewers will see a stunning landscape of lunar mountains and craters along the line between light and dark, day and night on the moon. And because of the moon's slight wobble in its orbit, we'll get to peek around the moon's edge, glimpsing what's usually hidden on its far side. NASA scientists say the view should be great from just about anywhere. That's the news. Thanks for watching.
Bye for now.